Hello, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Moore's October Rants. Today's episode is going to be titled Selective Outrage. Society has a complicated relationship with outrage. People seem to have this almost instinctual need to react, to show they care, to stand up for something, but only when it aligns with their narrative or worldview. This is what's often called selective outrage, and it's one of the most frustrating and hypocritical phenomena out there. Instead of addressing injustice consistently and fairly, people pick and choose which issues to care about, usually based on what fits their personal agenda. Let's really dig into this because it's everywhere, and it speaks volumes about how we operate as a society. One glaring example is the disparity in how people react to the suffering of different groups. Consider the ongoing struggles of the Palestinian people. Many people, especially in Muslim communities, are deeply vocal about the injustices they face. They'll protest, share posts, and passionately speak out, and rightly so. But here's where the hypocrisy starts to show. The same individuals are often silent about the Uyghur Muslims in China. These are people of Turkish origin who share cultural and historical ties with Turkish communities, yet they're enduring slavery, torture, and forced indoctrination in re-education camps at the hands of the Chinese government. Their mosques are being destroyed, their culture erased, and their very existence suppressed. So why is it that their suffering doesn't inspire the same level of outrage? Uh, I once had a conversation with someone who essentially admitted the reason for this. She claimed that the Uyghurs aren't the same as the Muslims in Palestine, implying that they're somehow less deserving of support because of their ethnic and cultural differences. That was a jaw-dropping moment for me. How can someone claim to care so deeply about the oppression of one group of Muslims but completely disregard the suffering of another? Um, it's selective outrage at its worst, choosing to care only when it fits neatly into a preferred narrative or when the victims feel relatable. And this isn't an isolated case. This behavior shows up everywhere, even in how we address issues like animal cruelty. Think about how people react to the mistreatment of pets, like dogs or cats. If someone sees a video of a dog being abused, they're rightfully outraged. They'll call for justice, demand consequences, and advocate for animal rights. But how many of those same people give a second thought to the conditions on factory farms, where millions of animals are subjected to cruelty that's just as bad, if not worse? Chickens crammed into cages, pigs confined to crates so small they can't even turn around, and cows pumped full of hormones before being slaughtered in inhumane conditions. Yet because these animals aren't seen as pets or don't fit the cultural image of what deserves compassion, their suffering is ignored. It's a textbook example of selective outrage, caring about one form of cruelty while conveniently overlooking another that's less comfortable to acknowledge. This kind of inconsistency reveals something uncomfortable about human nature. A lot of people aren't actually committed to principles like fairness, justice, or compassion. They're committed to their own biases and agendas. They'll speak out against one form of injustice when it suits them, but they'll turn a blind eye to another when it doesn't. And the truth is that kind of hypocrisy only makes things worse. When you pick and choose what to be outraged about, you undermine the very causes you claim to support. How can you demand justice for one group while ignoring, or worse, excusing, the suffering of another? It's not just hypocritical, it's harmful. Selective outrage isn't just about global issues or abstract concepts, it seeps into everyday interactions too. Look at how men and women are treated differently online. Women can say almost anything about men, mocking them for their looks, their finances, their height, their perceived failures, and people shrug it off or even cheer them on. But if a man turns around and does the same thing, suddenly it's a huge problem. He's called misogynistic, predatory, or abusive. If body shaming is wrong, and it is, then it should be wrong no matter who's doing it or who the target is. Yet somehow, society seems to think it's only bad when it's directed at women. That inconsistency is just another form of selective outrage. If we're serious about making the world a better place, we need to be consistent in how we address oppression, violence, and injustice. You can't claim to stand against cruelty or unfairness while ignoring it when it happens to someone or something you don't identify with. You can't condemn the abuse of pets while turning a blind eye to the suffering of farm animals. You can't decry body shaming or discrimination when it happens to one group while encouraging it when it happens to another. If you're going to stand for something, stand for it all the time, not just when it's convenient or popular. At the heart of this issue is a failure to see humanity and life as a whole. People get so caught up in their differences, political, cultural, personal, that they forget the common thread that connects us all. Oppression is oppression. Cruelty is cruelty. Injustice is injustice. It doesn't matter who or what it's happening to or where it's happening in the world. If you care about fairness and equality, then you have to care about it universally. Otherwise, all you're doing is contributing to the very divisions and injustices you claim to oppose. And honestly, that's just not good enough. Anyways, thank you for listening to this episode of the Moore's October Rants. Signing out. Have a good one, guys. Goodbye.